Hey there YouTube, this is Sharp coming at you with a review for this guy, the Benchmade Model 530 designed by Pardue. I've owned this knife for about a month now. I got it at Gander Mountain. I think the total price, tax, title and all, was about $99. I think you can find them on Amazon now for $92 or maybe even a little less now that the holidays are around. The great thing about this knife is that it was designed for, I think, one pretty specific purpose, and that's to be a gentleman's folder. I'm the type of guy that always has a knife on me in any situation, unless I'm doing something where you can't, like flying, for example, or if I'm in a school or a building similar to that. But you know, I grew up in South Carolina. I was always in Boy Scouts, and when I grew out of that, you know, I maintained an outdoor lifestyle with my friends, and it was just one of those places where people generally had some sort of tool on them to get little jobs done. So it was always a really acceptable thing. And since then, for the past probably 8 years of my life, I've lived in a downtown or a city type of area, and I do a lot of traveling. So having a knife on you, especially a big knife, is not always the most acceptable way to roll, and you've got to be conscious of that. You know, being around people all the time. You know, sometimes people do get a little nervous around big knives. So you know, I thought this was a great place to start. Yeah, as a gentleman's folder, it has to be thin. It has to be very lightweight, and I think this thing comes in at about 1.8 ounces all in all. And the handle is about 4.17 inches according to the website. The blade's so thin. It's a 2.29 millimeters, and it's a 3.25 inch blade, so it's actually a really manageable size. It comes with a gorgeous stone wash finish. I don't know if you can see that or not. There you go. And it's actually constructed really solidly. You know, when you open this thing up, it opens up lightning fast. Just push the thumb stud forward, and it pops right open with almost no effort. And the axis lock, it's really easy to actuate. Lock it back into place. Some guys like to open it with the axis lock, and that happens. I mean, it's really quick to deploy and to close. Another thing about the size, for you guys out there that like to wear clothes that are more fitted or tailored, which I tend to, this isn't going to actually stick out and show too much in your jeans, so it's easier to conceal, but you know, it's easy to forget that you have it in your pocket. So you know, it's one of those things you don't have to think about. It just goes in the pocket, and it's just always there because it doesn't take up any space. So that's a nice little plus. Doing what I do now for my job, I'm in a sales position. I'm always in someone's office, either mine or someone else's. 99% of the time, if I can get around using a knife and not use it, I will. And for the most part, these are just situations that come up where we need to open packaging and there are no other tools available. Because I just don't like to whip out a knife in public not knowing what people are going to think of it or if they're going to react negatively to it, especially in business. So it's a great knife for that. It's small enough and manageable enough and not too scary looking. The spear point blade, can be a little daggery looking sometimes, but for the most part, it's not that intimidating of a knife compared to something a lot bigger, like for example, the Rat 1. The thing is massive, or the Carson designed M16. It looks scary. It looks like a weapon versus something that looks a lot more like a tool. It's much more manageable and lightweight and small. So I prefer to carry this thing on me, and it really doesn't hinder me in any way. It's so small. The blade is actually 154 cm steel, which is a great stainless steel. It has stayed razor sharp for me. Here you can see it says it on the blade right here. There you go. You got the Designed by Pardue logo on this side, the Benchmade butterfly on this side. It's great steel. It's very strong, and it's maintained a razor edge. I actually ended up sharpening it to an even more acute angle because I don't tend to use it for prying or whittling. I use it as a slicer, which is primarily what you make a thin knife like this for. There's not a whole lot of sideways pressure that can roll or bend an edge. So yeah, I prefer a lot thinner of an edge on mine. You can see that there. This can be described as a coffin-style handle made out of what they call grivery. It's just one of those impregnated plastics that's really durable. I think you can hear what it sounds like on my fingernails. It's really hard plastic. We got another knife I can kind of scratch against it. If you want to hear what that sounds like. You know, it's just like, it's really, really hard plastic. It shows no signs of wear whatsoever. It doesn't have a single scratch on it since I bought it. The only wear actually I've noticed on the knife whatsoever is somewhere around the pocket clip. It's just a painted metal. It's a pretty standard pocket clip. Not too deep of a carry, but it's dark, which I liked at first, but now starting to show some glints of light, so it's a little less concealable. It's not my favorite thing, but it's not really something that I'm going to worry too much about. I can always go back over and give it a nice coat if I am that worried about it sometime in the future. You know, there are actually no full liners. You can see right inside there. It does have steel liners that go about halfway down, but they're not fully flush with the edge. They're pretty small steel liners, but that actually doesn't mean that this knife isn't extremely stable. I mean, this thing is super solid. I'm getting no wiggle ever. Never really have. It's just a great little knife. In terms of ergonomics, it actually feels really nice in the hand. It fills up your hand. It's got a little swell on both ends to kind of keep it in whichever direction you're pushing or pulling with it. But again, this isn't the type of blade that you'd want to use for tactical emergency blade. I mean, you could if you had to, just like you could any knife. But you know, it's not really meant for hard use. It's meant for slicing. So what it gives you is very light jimping and a relatively thin handle. It's actually really nice for what it was made for. Surprisingly easy to fit into the hand and very comfortable. I don't feel like I'm going to slip off of that at all. Yeah, so great grip. It feels just fine. The one complaint I do hear from guys with bigger hands, my dad was the first one to actually mention this to me, is that the axis lock actuators are actually flush with the handle almost. And that's by design. It's meant to be a really thin knife that you can carry all the time. Won't snag on anything. But for guys with bigger hands, he was saying that his fingers were getting sore from trying to push and pull this thing. And you know, I've got to admit, when I first got the thing, I was playing with it for about an hour in the car ride home, using the axis lock to open and to close it. And you know, my thumb and forefinger were a little bit numb after it. So you know, I completely understand what he means by that. But you know, since then I've gotten used to it, and I don't open it like that anymore, or 1,000 times a day. You know, I'm opening it maybe a few times a week when the situation arises. But use the thumb stud, pop it open. Use these two actuators for the axis lock and pop it back closed. It's simple as that. And as far as value is concerned, for 99 bucks, this is the best knife I have, not only because of what you get with it, it's because your best knife, your best gear, your best camera, whatever it is, your best one is the one that you have with you. And this is something that I can take with me anywhere. So highly recommend this knife, especially if you're a city slicker like me. It's great material, great blade, really easy to use. Actually kind of cool to show off to your friends. Neat little blade design and everything. It's very light, very pocketable. It's a great knife overall. So thanks. Please subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or what you think. Thanks.